All right, today we're going to crack open the black box on a system that uses machine learning to predict NBA games. And we're not just talking about who's going to win before the game starts. We're talking about predicting it live as it's happening. So let's dive right in. You know, most sports predictions, they kind of feel like a gut call, right? It's just educated guesswork, really. But what if you could ditch the guesswork? What if you could actually quantify the chaos of a live basketball game with some serious precision?
Well, check this out. This is the claim. A system so fine-tuned, it knows that when LeBron gets ruled out, it drops the Lakers' win probability by exactly 8%. So how on earth does it do that? We're about to break it down layer by layer.
Okay, so at its core, this thing isn't just one single model. It's actually a 4-layer engine. And you can think of it like an assembly line, right? Each step, each layer refines and corrects the work that came before it, getting more and more precise as it moves along. So here's the game plan. We're going to start with a powerful base model. Then we'll layer on top of that some real-time team stats. After that, we adjust for injuries, super important. And then for the final step, we do this crucial little tweak to make sure the predictions are actually reliable. Let's start right at the beginning, at the core.
Right, so this first part is all about teaching the model the fundamentals. You know, the basic patterns of how basketball games are actually won and lost.
The whole engine is built on this thing called XGBoost. Now, don't let the name scare you. The easiest way to think about it is like a huge committee of thousands of tiny little decision makers. Individually, they're simple, but when they all work together, they can spot these incredibly complex patterns in the data. And that is so important because a basketball game is just full of these subtle hidden patterns that a simpler model would completely miss. So what are we feeding this thing? What does it learn from? Well, it's a massive data set. We're talking over 40,000 in-game snapshots from 5 full NBA seasons. And each one of those snapshots captures everything that matters in that exact moment. The score differential, how much time is left, team strength, even things like live offensive and defensive ratings. And of course, momentum.
And here's a really clever little trick the model uses. It gets at a 10-point lead in the first quarter is totally different from a 10-point lead with 2 minutes to go, right? So it actually uses 2 separate submodels. There's one for the early part of the game, where general team strength is the big factor. And then there's a whole other one for the late game, where, let's be honest, the score is pretty much all that matters.
Okay, so now we have our core prediction. But look, a game isn't just a spreadsheet of stats, is it? It's about the actual players on the court. And these next 2 layers, this is kind of the secret sauce. This is what makes the model so dynamic, letting it adjust to the real world in real time.
This table perfectly shows the injury overlay in action. So the system has this pre-calculated impact factor for 58 of the league's star players. So what happens when news breaks that, say, Nikola Jokic is suddenly ruled out? The model doesn't panic. It just automatically subtracts a full 10 percentage points from Denver's win probability. See? It's not a guess. It's a hard-coded, pre-calculated adjustment.
And the best part? This all happens automatically. The system is constantly pinging ESPN's injury API, so if a player's status flips from questionable to out just minutes before the game, boom, the probability is updated instantly. No human has to lift a finger. All right, so the model is clearly smart. It gets game flow, it adjusts for injuries on the fly, but that leads us to a really, really important question. A model can be pretty good at picking winners, sure, but is it reliable? Can you actually trust its numbers? And that brings us to this idea of calibration. See, for something like trading or betting, you're not just picking a winner, you're trying to price probability itself. You have to know, without a doubt, that when your model says a team has a 70% chance to win, they actually win about 70% of the time. Accuracy is one thing, but calibration, that's about trust. It's everything.
Okay, so what are you looking at here? This tiny little number, this is the model's expected calibration error. Yeah, it looks incredibly small, and that is exactly the point. It means the model is almost perfectly reliable. But what does a number like that actually mean in the real world?
It means this. It means that when the model spits out a number, like say 70%, the real-world outcome is ridiculously close. Over the long run, teams it gives a 70% chance to win, well, they win somewhere between 69.8 and 70.2% of the time. That is an incredibly tight, razor-thin margin. That is a signal you can trust.
And it doesn't just get trustworthy, it stays trustworthy. Why? Because it's always learning. There's a live recalibrator that's constantly checking its own work. So if it starts to drift a little bit, maybe a new rule change messes with scoring averages, the system actually notices and corrects itself, usually within a few days. It keeps itself sharp all season long, no human intervention needed.
So, that's all the theory. The big question is, does any of this actually work in the real world?
Well, let's take a look at the numbers. An automated trading bot using these signals made 175 live trades. The result? A 66.3% win rate. That breaks down to 116 wins and only 59 losses. Not bad at all.
But here's what's really smart about the system. It knows it's not perfect, and it's designed to understand its own limits. It knows it has a big edge in very specific situations, like right after an injury announcement or during a late-game blowout. But in those 50-50 toss-up games, it knows it doesn't have an edge, so it just stays out of it. It's not just about being smart, it's about knowing when you're smart. So let's boil this all down. What are the key takeaways here? First, the best predictions are built in layers, with each one making the final result a little bit smarter. Second, and this is huge, when you're dealing with pricing probabilities, calibration is way more important than just raw accuracy. And finally, a real edge isn't about being right all the time. It's about knowing the specific spots where you have a clear advantage. So there you have it, a really fascinating peek at how machine learning can find order in the absolute chaos of a pro basketball game. And it really makes you wonder, right? What other complex, chaotic things out there could we start to understand in a completely new way if we just looked at them through the right lens? And hey, if this got you thinking and you want to try building something like this yourself, you actually can. The whole model is available through an API, and there's a totally free 6-module course that shows you how to build the exact system we just went through. You can find it all over at zenhodl.net. So yeah, go check it out, go build something cool.